Hospital scandal. A woman gives birth to twins with different skin colors, and suddenly, everything changes. The delivery room falls silent. Doctors whisper. The husband stares at the babies, shocked. Then he mutters just one sentence before walking out, "This doesn't make sense." What could tear a family apart in a single moment? Stay with us to uncover the shocking truth. But wait, this is just the beginning. Records go missing. Nurses avoid eye contact. The hospital tries to cover it up. What are they hiding, and why? Keep listening to African Legacy Tales to find out. This story will leave you outraged, and the truth, even more shocking. Stay with me to find out everything, and tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? They're beautiful, Nancy whispered, tears streaming down her face as she held her newborn twins for the first time. The delivery room was quiet, save for the gentle whimpers of the babies and the steady beep of monitors. Her husband, Steve, stood frozen at the foot of the bed, his face a mask of confusion and disbelief. Leah, one baby had fair skin like his parents. The other had dark skin. There must be some mistake, Steve's voice cracked as he spoke to the nurse, who was carefully checking the baby's vital signs. But there was no mistake. Both babies had emerged from Nancy's womb just minutes apart, a medical phenomenon that would soon turn their world upside down. Nancy knew what Steve was thinking. She could see it in his eyes, the accusation, the hurt, the anger building like a storm. "Steve, please," she reached for his hand, but he stepped back, his wedding ring catching the harsh fluorescent light of the hospital room. "Don't," he said, his voice cold and distant. "Just don't." The twins, oblivious to the tension surrounding their arrival, continued their soft cries. Nancy pulled them closer, her heart simultaneously filled with overwhelming love and crushing fear. She had waited so long for this moment, dreaming of it throughout her pregnancy, but nothing could have prepared her for this reality. "I've never," she started, her voice trembling. "I've never been with anyone else, Steve. You have to believe me." But Steve had already turned away, his shoulders rigid as he walked out of the delivery room. The door closed behind him with a final click that seemed to echo through Nancy's very soul. Dr. Reynolds, who had delivered the twins, stepped forward, her experienced eyes holding a mix of concern and professional curiosity. "Nancy," she said gently, "what you're experiencing is rare, but it's not unheard of. It's called mixed-race twins." But Nancy barely heard the doctor's explanation. Her world was crumbling around her, even as she held these two precious miracles in her arms. She looked down at her sons, identical in every way except for their skin color. The fair-skinned baby had a tuft of straight brown hair, while his brother had slightly darker, curlier hair. "They're perfect," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. "Both of them are perfect." The nurses exchanged worried glances as they went about their duties, their whispered conversations barely masking their curiosity. Nancy could already imagine the gossip that would spread through the hospital corridors, then through their small community. She lived in a modern world, yes, but prejudices ran deep, and people loved nothing more than a scandal. Her phone buzzed on the bedside table, probably her mother, eager for news of the birth. How would she explain this? How would anyone understand when even Steve, her husband of 5 years, had walked away without a word? The fair-skinned twin gripped his brother's tiny hand in his sleep, an unconscious gesture that brought fresh tears to Nancy's eyes. "I'll protect you both," she promised them softly. "No matter what anyone says or thinks, you're my sons, both of you." Outside her room, she could hear Steve's raised voice arguing with someone, probably Dr. Reynolds. The words DNA test and impossible drifted through the door. Nancy closed her eyes, trying to block out the sounds of her life unraveling. She had to be strong now, stronger than she'd ever been. As night fell over the hospital, Nancy lay awake, watching her twins sleep in their bassinets. She hadn't named them yet. That was something she and Steve were supposed to do together. Another dream shattered. The magnitude of what lay ahead began to sink in, raising twins alone, facing accusations and judgment, fighting for acceptance in a world that would question their very existence. But as she watched her sons sleeping peacefully, unaware of the storm their arrival had created, Nancy felt a fierce determination growing within her. These boys were a miracle, regardless of what anyone else might think, and she would move heaven and earth to give them the life they deserved. What she didn't know then was that this was just the beginning. The truth about her twins' unique appearance would prove far more extraordinary than anyone could have imagined, and it would take years of heartache, struggle, and an unexpected scientific discovery to bring that truth to light. The twins came home to a house filled with silence. Nancy's mother, Barbara, stood in the nursery doorway, watching her daughter arrange two identical cribs that she and Steve had assembled together just weeks ago. The room, painted in cheerful yellows and greens, now felt like a monument to shattered dreams. "Nancy, honey," Barbara began cautiously, "maybe you should consider alternatives." She couldn't quite meet her daughter's eyes as she spoke. "There are agencies that to stop." Nancy's voice was quiet but firm as she tucked a blanket around the darker-skinned twin, whom she'd named Maurice. "They're my children, Mom. Both of them." She turned to the other crib, where Mark slept peacefully, his fair skin flushed pink with warmth. Barbara wrung her hands, her face lined with worry. "But the neighbors, the church group, people are already talking, and Steve's family can think what they want," Nancy interrupted, though her voice caught on his name. The DNA test results lay unopened on the kitchen counter downstairs. She hadn't needed to look at them to know what they would show. These were her sons, carried beneath her heart for 9 months. The how and why didn't matter as much as that simple truth. But the world wasn't as accepting as Nancy wanted it to be. When she finally ventured out to the grocery store, pushing the twin stroller, she felt the stares burning into her back. Old Mrs. Henderson from her church group deliberately crossed to the other side of the aisle. The checkout girl's eyes widened as she looked from one baby to the other, then at Nancy, questions clearly dancing on the tip of her tongue. It was during one of these outings that Nancy first met Vanessa, a retired nurse who would become her unexpected ally. While other shoppers whispered and stared, Vanessa had approached the stroller with genuine warmth. "Twins! How wonderful," she'd exclaimed, admiring both babies equally. "You know, in my 40 years of nursing, I saw quite a few surprises in the delivery room. Nature has its own logic, doesn't it?" That chance encounter led to coffee dates where Vanessa shared stories from her years in maternal care, including cases of unusual twin births. Her acceptance was like a balm to Nancy's wounded spirit, but it couldn't completely heal the hurt of Steve's continued absence. He'd moved in with his brother, filing for divorce within weeks of the twins' birth. The papers cited irreconcilable differences, a sterile legal term for the chasm that had opened between them. Nancy's attempts to reach out, to make him understand, were met with cold silence or hostile accusations. The twins were 3 months old when Nancy received the first anonymous letter. It was pushed under her door late one night, the typed words stark against the white paper: "Children deserve to be with their real parents." She crumpled it in her fist, her hands shaking with anger and fear. More letters followed, along with whispered comments at the supermarket and pointed questions from distant relatives about her situation. Nancy started documenting everything: the letters, the incidents, the subtle threats. She installed security cameras around the house, changed her phone number, and learned to be constantly vigilant. Through it all, Maurice and Mark thrived. They developed distinct personalities early on. Mark was the quiet observer, while Maurice was all energy and smiles. They were inseparable, reaching for each other across their cribs, crying when apart. Their bond seemed to transcend their physical differences, a silent rebuke to those who questioned their connection. One evening, as Nancy sat in the nursery rocking Maurice to sleep while Mark watched from his crib, her father made a rare visit. John Carter had barely spoken to his